While Draymond Green's status as one of the NBA's greatest defensive players will always be debatable, there's zero doubt about one thing. He's the most scrutinized and hated player ever. Since he entered the league, Draymond has always faced enormous pressure being the defensive powerhouse for one of the greatest NBA dynasties. Unfortunately, this seems to get to his head more than necessary. No one has gotten ejected more often or received more texts. He became known as the guy who loves to stir the pot and get under people's skin. But sometimes it doesn't just affect opponents, but also those around him. Positively,
Draymond is one of a kind, when it comes to defense.
And negatively. And while a lot of difficulties of having Draymond on your team comes from fans and media, some of it comes from Draymond himself. Clashes with opponents and teammates alike, constant ejections and suspensions when the team needed him most, and calling out teammates after a bad performance. But are the downsides of playing with Draymond greater than other superstars? Is Draymond really a bad teammate, or does this come with the territory of playing with a competitive defensive great? Well, it depends on who you ask and who you compare him to. LeBron James publicly took a shot at Kevin Love. Kobe Bryant and Shaquille O'Neal couldn't surrender their egos. And Larry Johnson let anyone, including Alonzo Mourning, know that he was the top dog in the team. Now, all these guys weren't saints, but sometimes their contributions often overshadow other things. But for a person like Draymond, who always loves to be in the spotlight for the wrong reasons, every action he takes is questioned. Draymond isn't just some bench warmer with a loud mouth. He's a versatile player renowned for his defensive prowess, playmaking skills, and basketball IQ. Drafted 35th overall in the 2012 NBA draft by the Golden State Warriors, Draymond quickly proved that he was more than his draft position suggested. He inked a 3-year, $2.6 million deal with the Warriors in late July 2012. Draymond wasn't initially the team's first choice defensive head for the first couple of seasons, but after teammates Brandon Rush and Richard Jefferson were both traded to the Utah Jazz, it opened the door for Draymond to get more playing time. And boy, did he take advantage of it. He took charge and became the first choice on defense for the Dubs, and the fans loved his tenacity. And it's not just about raw physicality. Draymond's basketball IQ was through the roof. He was a maestro on the defensive end, often orchestrating the Warriors' defense with precision. His playmaking ability adds another layer to his game, making him a pivotal piece in Golden State's success. But let's not sugarcoat it. Playing with Draymond has its downsides. His tendency to rack up technical fouls and get into altercations can be a double-edged sword, and it started to show early on in his career. While his intensity can galvanize the team, it can also lead to unnecessary penalties and distractions. Opponents know this, and they often try to provoke him, hoping to get him off his game. Back in the 2014-15 season, the Golden State Warriors experienced a resurgence, and with it came the breakthrough they had been hoping for from Draymond. When David Lee was sidelined with a hamstring injury, Draymond stepped up as the starting power forward. Over the first 7 games, Draymond averaged almost 14 points per game, though the Warriors started 5-2 after dropping 2 games in a row in early November. To shake off that mini slump, the Warriors went on an epic 16-game winning streak. Draymond played a crucial role, averaging 13 points per game during the streak. He even notched a career-high 31 points in a 112-102 win over the Chicago Bulls in early December. Draymond's impact was undeniable throughout the season, and his stellar play earned him runner-up spots in both the Defensive Player of the Year award and the Most Improved Player award. The season reached its peak with the Warriors clinching the NBA championship, their first in 40 years. Draymond had a triple-double in Game 6 of the finals, filling in at center for Andrew Bogut. This feat placed him among NBA legends like Magic Johnson, Larry Bird, James Worthy, Tim Duncan, and LeBron James as one of the few to record a triple-double in a finals-clinching game. It was a fitting cap to a breakout season for Draymond. Together with Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Andre Iguodala, they formed the deadly death lineup with Draymond leading the defensive line, while Steph and Klay delivered the kill with their insane shooting. The Warriors took down the LeBron-led Cavaliers to secure their first championship of the Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, Draymond Green era. An era which Draymond would do anything possible to defend. Fast forward to the 2015-16 season, and the Warriors were gunning for back-to-back championships. Things were looking good until the 2016 Western Conference Finals. During Game 3, Draymond had one of his infamous moments, kicking Steven Adams in the groin. The NBA slapped him with a $25,000 fine. Draymond was in peak form during the 2016 postseason, but his intensity sometimes boiled over. In the finals against the Cavaliers a second time around, he got into a heated moment with LeBron James near midcourt.
Green and James join.
The replay showed Draymond swinging his arm at LeBron's groin as LeBron stepped over him. The Warriors won that game, taking a commanding 3-1 series lead. However, the NBA retroactively gave Draymond a flagrant foul, resulting in an automatic suspension because it was his fourth of the postseason. This suspension was pivotal. The Cavaliers won the next 3 games, pulling off a historic comeback to win the championship. Many argue that Draymond's suspension was a turning point, costing the Warriors the title. And you couldn't help but agree. The Dubs were comfortable before his suspension, and they felt like a pack of cards in his absence. And at this point, Draymond's consistency became a subject of numerous questioning. And he was becoming a liability to his team because the Dubs didn't really have a suitable replacement for Draymond if he was out. So it cost them games. Early in the 2016-17 season, the Dubs were up against the Houston Rockets and the Warriors were battling hard as the game went into its second overtime. Then, out of nowhere, Draymond's leg swung up and hit James Harden in the head during a rebound.
Overtime clock at 2:15. Durant, Green, no. Anderson couldn't get it from Green. Livingston grabs the ball and a whistle and a
Boom. Flagrant foul. This foul essentially killed the Warriors' chances to tie the game. It was one of those classic Draymond moments that makes you wonder, what was he thinking? Even Steve Kerr, the head coach of the Warriors, sometimes gets fed up with Draymond's antics. During a rough stretch in the 2018-19 season, the Warriors fell to the Phoenix Suns 115-111, making their 4th loss in 6 games. The team, known for dominating the NBA for the past 4 years and winning 3 titles in that period, looked uninspired. But what stole the show that night wasn't just the loss, it was the bench drama. Draymond, visibly frustrated, was caught on camera, and Steve Kerr seemed to say to assistant coach Mike Brown, "I'm so f***ing tired of Draymond shit." Now, NBA lip readers might get a bit eager, but it looked like Kerr was venting his frustration with Draymond's behavior. The locker room vibes didn't help either. After the game, Kerr looked for Draymond, only to find his locker empty. Draymond had already left, leaving Kerr to decline comments to reporters until the next practice. It was getting uncomfortable for everyone around Draymond. Despite these hiccups, the Warriors were still packed with talent and had the potential to snap out of their slump. No one would have been surprised if they had gone on another unstoppable run through the postseason to clinch a 3rd straight title. But could Draymond keep his head straight? The answer was no. He had a heated argument with Kevin Durant. It was the end of regulation during an overtime loss to the Los Angeles Clippers, and KD was visibly frustrated. Why? Because Draymond, instead of passing the ball for the final shot, decided to turn it over.
Ticked iron. They don't use a timeout at 3. Draymond at 2. They got to get a shot off, and they don't.
What followed was a 3-minute verbal showdown on the bench, with Draymond doing most of the yelling while KD mostly nodded in irritation. The argument was intense enough that teammates had to step in and separate them. The drama didn't end there. Reports came out that the argument spilled over into the locker room, with Draymond calling out KD about his upcoming free agency. This confrontation was significant enough that the Warriors suspended Draymond for 1 game. And as it turned out, this was KD's last season with the Dubs. Now, fast forward to the 2019-20 season. The Warriors were having a rough time, and it wasn't just because Steph and Klay were out with injuries. The man who was supposed to step up and be the leader in their absence, Draymond, wasn't exactly leading the charge. After a 28-point blowout loss to the Oklahoma City Thunder, Draymond didn't mince words. He bluntly told the media, "We f***ing suck." Not exactly a rallying cry, but brutally honest. He went on and on about how the team lacked the cutting edge to win games. But he kept racking up ejections after ejections.
Draymond Green is actually going to get ejected from the game. He's getting into it with Dwight Howard. Now he's going to argue with the referees. He gets 2 technical fouls and he gets tossed. That is hilarious. Even today.
This happened in games where his teammates needed his defensive abilities the most. His Warriors teammates had to deal with his intense, sometimes abrasive personality. Sometimes he goes more than just calling them out. You see, things took a nosedive for the worse for Draymond during a preseason practice in early October 2022. He shoved and punched teammate Jordan Poole. This wasn't just a minor scuffle. It set off a series of violent, impulsive acts. This wasn't what the Warriors needed, coming off the back of their 4th championship title in 8 years. That altercation led to a lack of trust among Draymond and his Warriors teammates, and they were knocked out by the Lakers in the second round of the 2023 playoffs. Draymond even came out to say that his punch contributed to their exit. Earlier, during the first round of the playoffs, he was suspended for a game for stomping on the chest of Sacramento Kings center Domantas Sabonis.
Monk puts it up, and Curry's got the board. Green gets tied up.
In the first few months of the 2023-2024 season, Draymond was suspended 4 times. In mid-November, he was banned for 5 games for putting Minnesota Timberwolves center Rudy Gobert in a chokehold. Less than 2 minutes into the game, Draymond put Rudy Gobert in a headlock during a melee that started with a tussle between Klay Thompson and Jaden McDaniels. Draymond held the headlock for several seconds before being pulled off, leading to his ejection along with Klay and McDaniels. The NBA handed Draymond a 5-game suspension, citing his history of transgressions as a factor. Meanwhile, Klay, McDaniels, and Gobert were each fined $25,000. It was getting out of hand, and the Draymond problem was turning into a full-blown crisis. The NBA had to step in and hand him an indefinite suspension after he swung and struck Phoenix Suns center Jusuf Nurkic in the head just 1 month later.
Picked up his 3rd foul, and now Green runs over Nurkic, and he'll be...
Nurkic, clearly shaken, said afterward, "Personally, I feel like that brother needs help." Nothing could help the Warriors, who were without Draymond for some important stretch of games. Elite athletes have different competitive mindsets. Some are calm, some are revved up, and Draymond is definitely in the revved up category. While this intense competitive fire can be celebrated, it's a fine line. When you're highly intense, it can tip over into behavior that's just not acceptable. Draymond has walked the tightrope for years. He's won 4 NBA championships and was named the 2017 Defensive Player of the Year. But now, he's crossed the line too many times. Now the Warriors should be grateful for Draymond's role in the most exciting era of the team's history. He was key to those championship runs, but his behavior is indefensible. Call me old school, but we expect a team's leader to play with pride and passion. This version of Draymond flops, picks up selfish frustration fouls at the worst moments, stomps on down players, and throws punches at guys who jostle him. He collects technical fouls like it's normal. Speaking of which, Draymond is a tech machine. He's finished 1st or 2nd in technical fouls 5 times in his 12 NBA seasons. And racking up more techs means more suspensions. It's embarrassing. The Dubs have never had a problem child like this guy, and he's supposed to be one of their team's leaders. It takes a lot to tarnish 4 championship rings, but Draymond was doing a fantastic job of it. And after the whole incident with Jordan Poole, which led to Poole being traded to the Wizards, you'd think things would settle down. But last season, reports were surfacing about tensions between him and another teammate, Jonathan Kuminga, the promising small forward. According to various reports, there's apparently no relationship between them, despite Kuminga being seen as a future replacement for Draymond in the starting lineup. That's a pretty awkward situation for team dynamics, especially considering Draymond's role as a veteran leader. But no one is to blame except for Draymond. His actions led to his suspension, and during his absence, Kuminga stepped up and helped Steph reduce the team's workload. Not that it helped anyway, as the Dubs missed the playoffs. After the Golden State Warriors lost to the Sacramento Kings in the play-in game, it sparked discussions about the end of an era. For many, it signals the decline of a dynasty that once boasted Steph, Klay, and Draymond as cornerstones, along with Coach Steve Kerr likely bound for the Hall of Fame. As Steph and his teammates age, Steph at 36 and Klay and Draymond both at 34, the team struggled. Draymond's multiple suspensions for on-court altercations and the team's challenges in nurturing a young core around their veterans have compounded their woes. But everyone placed much of the blame on Draymond. He just can't keep his head cool, even when it is required. In a game against the Orlando Magic, Draymond faced an early ejection and it made Steph emotional. It spoke volumes about the Golden State Warriors' tumultuous season. It was frustrating for Steph because of the critical nature of every game and their fight to make the playoffs, making Draymond's early exit unforgivable. Despite the setback, the Warriors managed to pull off a win, although their struggles against playoff caliber teams were evident all season, as Steph continues to shoulder the team's load, particularly in a challenging year for Golden State. Even though no one wanted to say it, Draymond was becoming unreliable for the team. But Draymond seems eager to gauge his teammates' views on his often controversial behavior. Sometime back on his podcast, he turned to Klay Thompson for insights into how his frequent ejections and suspensions impact team dynamics, a topic that's as awkward as it is relevant.
I'm very afraid of that. I'll be brutally honest with you. When I get ejected or something of that nature or suspended, what do you feel? How do you feel? It's going to crush me, but I need to hear it.
When you're not out there, it's like a piece of us is gone. We could never be ourselves and have the freedom we do on the court without you.
Klay delivered a response that was more sugar-coated than straight talk, avoiding the tough love Draymond might have needed. Meanwhile, opinions on Draymond in the Warriors camp are mixed. While his on-court antics, like punching Jordan Poole or clashing with opponents, have drawn heavy criticism for hurting team morale, others argue that Draymond's intensity is just part of his competitive nature that can sometimes overshadow his positive impact as a leader and a friend in the locker room.